Good afternoon from Sydney and welcome to the Fyber CFO Network. Fyber CFO Network is a global platform that has acted as a true melting pot for the CFOs and the senior finance leaders who are passionate about finance transformation as well as transforming the lives of the people around them, to come in and share their ideas and their experiences. Today we've got Sue Rosen, who is a wonderful person and a chartered accountant who's been invited in my show today to talk about her experience in coaching senior executives on leadership, teamwork, and communication. So join me in welcoming Sue. Sue, welcome to my show.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be here.
Thanks a lot. So tell me about your background, because you being a chartered accountant and chartered accountants being most of the time as the left brain professionals rather than the right brain professional, because there is a very interesting theory that people who are more logical and more mathematical and more analytical, they tend to use more of their left side of the brain rather than the right side of the brain. And the right side of the brain is all about building relationships, having empathy, being creative, and more artistic. So being a chartered accountant and more mathematical and analytical and technical based on your background and your studies and your training, how have you done the transition from the left side of the brain to the right side of the brain? and the second thing is, I would also like to understand what is the meaning of an authentic CFO leader, authentic leader as a CFO?
Yeah, okay. I'll start with introducing myself and that piece about the left and the right brain. Look, we all use both sides of our brain. We all use the left and the right, and obviously some of us prefer to work in that technical, analytical, logical way, and others prefer to work, rather than in straight lines, in more curves and wheels and colors. But we all have both, and we can all strengthen either side. So of course, I believe that most people who've gone into accounting as a profession, probably there's a predominance of that logical, analytical side, but it doesn't mean they don't have the other part. And you and I were speaking before the show about how often accountants who are sometimes more outgoing or more gregarious in their nature have been told over the years, you're not a typical accountant. And I think the stereotypes are rather outdated. I do know lots of CFOs who are much more outgoing and are very, very good at building relationships and communicating with stories and in different ways rather than, sitting analysing numbers. And I think it's probably always been true that to progress into more senior roles, that's when you really need to move away from the technical focus.
Sure.
And actually move more into the working with people.
Sure.
How do you build a team? How do you influence people outside the team? And how do you find more creative approaches or more innovative ways to move forward? So I don't think, they're mutually exclusive, but I think if you've spent a lot of years in that technical if you have a predisposition to be more technical and analytical, and then you spend many years in technical training, you have channeled, or your neural pathways have been developed and they've channeled you in one direction. And so sometimes we need to challenge ourselves to move in a different direction.
Sure.
For me, I felt for a long time that actually I didn't want to be in that technical, logical, analytical world. And I believed that as I progressed in my career, I would be more comfortable with some of the big picture thinking, with the building relationships. Those were the areas I would feel happier. So I did progress my career. I came out of the profession early on after qualifying and worked in finance teams and started heading up finance teams and moved into a CFO role quite a lot of years ago now. But I still really felt that I wanted to do the work that was more about people and less actually about the business and the numbers and more about the people. And that connected with me much more. So that is why over the last few years I have transitioned into this role of coaching senior leaders, not only in finance but predominantly in finance, because I do understand the language and the jargon, I understand the context they work in. But for me, the attraction is building the connections with people and helping them take themselves to the next level in terms of their ability to communicate and ability to influence and work with people and develop that other side, those so-called soft skills that maybe have been overlooked.
Great.
So then to the second part of your question about how do you, as a CFO or as an aspiring CFO, become an authentic leader? For me, the term authentic leader is all about being a leader who acts in accordance with their values. So they consistently walk their talk. And what that means is bringing them their whole selves to work. And sometimes that means bringing the funny or the silly or the ridiculous, which often, I think sometimes when we're in finance teams, that can be suppressed or squeezed in a bit, that's not how we're expected to be seen. So bringing the whole self means bringing all these different aspects of your personality, being the human who shows up and interacting with everybody else who is a human as well. It doesn't mean, there is sometimes a misconception that it means bringing your whole self, and that might mean oversharing, but that's not what this is about. This is about building the awareness of who you are, but building the awareness of what's appropriate in different situations. So there are still boundaries. We still need to build trust with people before we share things. But authenticity does require a level of vulnerability.
True.
And, that takes courage. So, we do need to move forward with both compassion and with courage to become the authentic leader who brings their whole self to work, but also encourages others to do so as well.
Leadership is just so important, especially from finance transformation perspective as well, because the way I look at it, finance transformation has gone through an evolution over the past few years or so. So it all started with the base level where the finance professional helped businesses in unification of their databases through implementation of ERP systems, connecting different standalone systems together, integrating them in order to have a single version of truth. So that was the first stage in transformation, business transformation. The second stage was where we saw all of these analytics and business intelligence tools that came out. And that helped businesses getting more and more insights, the business insights regarding the value chain and where to focus and how to focus and what to address in the business. And then the third stage in that transformation journey was where you have machines, you have cognitive tools, you have technologies that is taking care of your database management, it is taking care of your analytics and all of that. So what do you do with the people who are sitting around in finance? Okay, now those people have to become business partners because they have to step out of their comfort zones of being just a traditional accountant into becoming true business partners. And I think that goes hand in hand with the leadership skills. So what do you think, how can CFOs have their leadership presence felt across the business? How can they have their their leadership presence felt across?
Yeah, well, I think there's two. So I think there are two parts to that, really. I think the first is how do they develop their own authentic leadership presence, and for me that very much starts with doing the work on themselves and in themselves. So self-awareness is a huge part of this. So building your emotional intelligence is crucial, and there are there are four components really to emotional intelligence. But the key to starting the work in that area is self-awareness. And that requires you to actually take some time for reflection. Mm-hmm. So it's about reflecting on what your values are and what is most important to you. It's on reflecting on what your strengths are. Where do you bring, and obviously there are technical strengths and skills, but there are also personality and character strengths. How do you actually show up? How do you impact the people around you? What do people experience of you when you walk in a room? Mm-hmm. And for that, so you can do your own self-reflection. I think it's hugely important, mm-hmm. but also hand in hand with that is feedback from people around you. Mm. So really being open to hearing the feedback from your direct reports about how they experience you, from your peer group, and from the people to whom you report, whether that's the C-suite or whether you're in the C-suite and you're reporting to a board or your CEO, then it's about understanding how other people see you, as well as understanding how you see yourself, and working with those things to present something that is in accordance with your values and in alignment, and finding an alignment between your values and those of the organization. Because then the second part is you understanding your strengths, but there's also understanding where your blind spots are. Yeah. And it's not about just bolstering weaknesses or development areas. It's about actually understanding your own experiences and history and how you build wisdom from that. Sure. And then you lead with, I often like to say, it's about bringing the heart into the leadership, mm-hmm. as well as the head. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because it's about connecting with the people. Correct. So then this is the second piece about how you build influence is really connecting with people, which requires the building of empathy, mm-hmm. which requires you to sit and listen to people. Yep. It's not about telling people what to do. Mm-hmm. It is about, and I think this is really a shift now in the 21st century, mm-hmm. is that the challenges, the complexity of the challenges we face are such that a leader can't be expected to have all the answers. So it's not about, I'm the boss and I have all the answers and I've done all these years of technical training. It's about what are the challenges that we're facing and how do I bring a group of people around the table and open conversation up and open collaboration up so that everybody's idea can be heard. And every individual wants to be seen and heard and be valued for who they are. Absolutely. So that's where it starts, in forming the immediate relationships. And then how can you bring those people together to share their ideas? And that requires you to create a culture of trust where people can grow and develop and offer their viewpoints, and that's where diversity and inclusion is so important. People have had different experiences, so how can their experience combine with my experience to help us move forward and find more innovative solutions? Yep. And when it comes to digital transformation, it's not just about, well, what are these accountants going to do and are they going to become finance business partners, but it's actually how can we collaboratively find the way forward for both how the transformation works and what we're trying to deliver, and then how they go out and work with people. And one of the keys for that is actually identifying, well, what is the purpose of what we're doing?
I think that's a great answer, yeah. But these are some of the personal attributes for the CFO. And what are the essential ingredients from this perspective for CFO to train and develop their teams and pull them along?
Yeah, well, I think again that starts with getting to know your team, mm-hmm. and understanding that everybody in the team brings something a little different. Mm-hmm. It's then about being really clear on where you're all going, where you need people to get to. So what is our purpose and our vision at an organizational level, at a team level, and at an individual level, so that everybody can be working in the same direction. Mm-hmm. And then outlining, what do I expect from you? And really being clear about that so that people know what they need to deliver. And then you can empower them to deliver in the way that suits them. It's actually, you can provide them with a lot more autonomy, but also regular feedback. An annual performance review doesn't cut it. It's about a continual, ongoing conversation about how can you develop your skills and your strengths. Where are you struggling? And I think a great question, for a leader of a team is, how can I support you to get this done? But in that, we need to be very clear about what's this. What is the work that I need done, and how can I help you deliver on that? And are you clear on what I need from you? Right. So some of those conversations are some of those, can be challenging conversations to have.
They're extremely important at the same time.
And they can be challenged from the perspective of either, but he's a really good guy, and I like him, and so I don't want to be too hard on him, or he has a family and I don't want him to lose his job. But ultimately as well, if we come to this with the view that actually the most compassionate thing and the best thing in the longer term for this person would be to learn how to develop their skills. So if they're not delivering in a certain area, working with them to get really clear on what it is you need done, and then how can you help them come along on that journey. So, which might be investment in technical skills. It might be encouraging them to have difficult conversations of their own, and helping them move beyond their comfort zone. If they've been in their comfort zone, sitting in a finance team, working in on spreadsheets, and then I'm asking them to go out and have some challenging conversations with other parts of the business, coaching and mentoring, whether that's from an external coach or whether that's internally. How do I support them to have those conversations? How do I support them to get curious about what's happening out there? And too often we get a bit caught in our own idea of being the technical expert. And we forget that actually curiosity and having a beginner's mind is so valuable. So that when I go out there as a finance person and I talk to the marketing team, I don't need to be the expert. It can actually help if I ask some questions that from a perspective of that beginner's mind, because that will elicit some new thinking.
Absolutely.
So, we may need to coach our team to get out there and have those conversations because we haven't asked it of them before, and that's not part of their professional training. Absolutely.
And I think the difference between a great financial controller and a CFO is the art of communication. It's not the technical skills. It's not being technical finance professional. It's just how well you can present yourself in front of the business who are non-technical. How well you can translate all the financial data into stories.
Absolutely.
How well you can speak in their language.
I think there are two parts to that. There's the how do I communicate what I know from my financial understanding in a way that they will understand through storytelling, and through, if you have a really good in-depth understanding of the business, then you can see what the trigger points are or the levers are for moving forward. But also, how do you build your influence with the rest of the business? By building the relationships, not only when you are presenting something back to them, but offering your expertise to help them. What are the challenges that you can help them solve? What are the relationships that you can be building on an ongoing basis so that when you need something, you've already built the relationships. When you are presenting, you've all been sharing information, and they are equally able to come to you to say, I'm struggling with understanding what is happening here. So how can we bring our two minds together with these different perspectives, the perspective of a sales and marketing guy or a finance guy? How can I bring these different perspectives together?
Great answer. And if you could also quickly let us know, how can CFOs influence and add value to people and businesses outside of their functional area of finance?
Well, I think that's really what we were saying. That's about getting out from behind your desk and exploring relationships with people across the business. I think it's hugely valuable if you have an opportunity to do a stint running a project that is not in the finance division or department. That can be very valuable. But it also just even getting together with those people and saying, I really want to understand better how your team operates, what your main focus is, because that helps you understand the purpose of the whole organisation and ensuring that we're all moving in the same direction. So it's that curiosity and that beginner's mind to ask the questions, to be having those conversations with people from outside the team, and encouraging your team to do that as well. It's at the CFO level, but also encouraging your team to do that so that they are building their understanding of what's going on. How do we do team building across the organisation? How do we get people out of their silos?
Yeah, that's very important.
Building the relationships so that they have a real understanding of not just this table of numbers in front of them, but what does that look like? And that means getting out. I was talking to somebody, a CFO who's in the construction industry the other day, and she loves nothing better than to get out on the on site, and talk with people out there. Put on the steel cap boots and go out and talk to people. If you're in retail, go out and talk to store managers. Understand their pain points.
True.
And understand, what their main challenges are and what their greatest fun is as well. What do they love about what they're doing, and what are they struggling with? So how can we work together?
Collaboration is always the key. Absolutely.
Definitely.
It's always a great pleasure listening and talking to someone who imparts wisdom than preaching knowledge. So, and you are one of those people who
Thank
actually
you.
impart wisdom on others. Thanks a lot. It was a great pleasure.